Three, two, one.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, wherever you are. And we're welcoming you to our Tuesday Universal Peace Federation webinar series. Today's program is hosted by the International Association for Peace and Economic Development, which, as you know, is one of the 8 associations under the UPF umbrella. So my name's Alan Jessen. I'm here with Roger Wetherall today. It's be a little different. We are here, just the two of us, to welcome you and host a discussion. As you saw in probably the promotion, our group IAED is sponsoring a online conference next week for 2 days, and we have some speakers lined up. So we thought we would introduce you to that and then open it up for discussion on our topic. So let me give you a little background, if I would, just on how we got here. So, some years ago, we became aware, just talking with people even around the world, about what is, when we talked about IAED, the economic development, people want to know, what do you stand for? What are your positions on different issues, right? Because economics and politics, of course, have a lot of different aspects, different sides, different viewpoints. So it kind of pushed a few of us on a hunt to look at, the teaching, of course, of the divine principle, the words in there, and then we began looking into what is Headwing Economics. So it's been about 3-4 year journey discussing that, and eventually we hooked up with a couple other brothers, Abe Wone from Africa and Dr. John Bellavance from Oceania, as well as Enrique Sanchez Motos from Spain, UPF and IED members, and we decided we worked together to write a paper. So it took a process, and this is the first draft. And that framework paper is available, as you saw in the promo. You could click and read that. It's a 17-page document. So what are we trying to do with that paper? I'll turn it over to Roger. He can explain a little bit too on that. But from that paper, then we tried to get some feedback. We're interested in connecting with other economists and other people who share the interest in finding solutions and finding a path towards a better future, right? And negotiating the different wings of Headwing. So we came on this idea of having a conference, and actually we're planning to having this conference and then every 6 months have another conference to build a kind of a portfolio of ideas, if you will, and help us even improve on that framework of the draft. So, it was kind of evident. I'm going to go back just a little bit, because right after COVID, the World Economic Forum put out a paper called Stakeholder Capitalism and the Great Reset. So there's people out there really trying to, move in certain directions, but are they God-centered? Are they the directions we would do? Are they humanistic? I would argue not so much. They're more the Kane type, some of them, at least the WEF. So there's able type and more organization people looking at this question from a more spiritual and universal value perspective. In fact, one of our speakers co-authored a book called The Greater Reset, in response to the Great Reset. So we're interested in connecting with those kind of people, and that's the work we're trying to undertake. Roger, if you want to pull up the poster, I'll go over that.
Sure.
And I just introduce people to briefly to the speakers of our conference, and we have a number of good ones. Gordon Anderson is going to lead off. His program title is Integral Society and Economic Sustainability, Body, Wings, Spheres, and Levels. And he says, Headwing Economics, as a subset of Headwing thought, emphasizes the roles of individuals as moral agents, the right wing, and social institutions as tools, the left wing, serving society's well-being. In this model, left-wing thought ensures fair distribution through institutions, while right-wing thought fosters individual responsibility and moral growth. So that'll be interesting. Bruce Wong is from Australia. He's a business person, and he's just going to share his personal testimony and story of his business journey and how he sees business leading to moral prosperity. And all of these have been associated with UPF in one way or another so far. So we hope to, meet new people as well, of course. The next speaker, this is all Friday. So it's in 2 days because Friday allows the time zone for Australia to participate. And then Saturday at noon, 11 o'clock Eastern, allows Europe and Africa to participate. So Fawad Sobi will share his personal testimony as both a spiritual and business leader and how he has been impacted by the ideals of Universal Peace Federation. Jim Rogers is a well-known investor and capitalist, I guess, and he will share what he believes needs to be done to further a world economy of interdependence and mutual prosperity and what he is doing about it. That's what he emphasized. Then on Saturday, the leadoff speaker will be Dr. Ward, and his title of his presentation is Adam Smith's Life and the Theory of Moral Sentiments, a reflection on their role in the formulation of his economic worldview. He says this presentation examines the life and writings of Adam Smith, the leading particular attention to how his earliest work, Theory of Moral Sentiments, 1789, impacted his political worldview. Then the next speaker, Dawn Brohan, she is a co-director, a co-founder with the Center for Economic and Social Justice. Her title is The Genius of Louis Kelso, a New Paradigm for Financing a Just Free Market System. She says this presentation will introduce the case for Louis Kelso's revolutionary insights and why we need to change the way we finance economic growth through a sound money system that universalizes citizen access to ownership of new productive capital. And then we will have Dr. Amick, I guess. He's going to talk about cross-sector partnerships. And he says, after World War II, the USA and its European allies, I'm going to get a shorter one. Similar to the aftermath of World War II, today actors in the private and social sectors are emerging to rebuild Ukraine, perhaps Gaza, and other war-torn economies in Africa, and solve the overwhelmed emergency medical response systems in New York City and other big cities around the world. Social value investing provides a framework and checklist to help guide these efforts. So that'll be interesting. Joseph Busha is an economist and founder of some business in Africa. He's an advocate for sustainable economic development in Africa. Mr. Busha will share his insights into the important role that Pan-African collaboration will play in global trade and a future economy of mutual prosperity. And finally, we have Pablo Sanz from Spain. And this will be interesting as well. He's a professor in international commerce, and he writes, this presentation will analyze the reconfiguration of global trade in the emerging multipolar era, characterized by the strategic struggle between the G7-led bloc and the rising global south represented by BRICS. Based on the principles of Headwing Economics, interdependence, mutual prosperity, and ethical governance, it will argue that the current fragmentation is not inevitable, and it will propose a concrete framework for cooperation that transcends the zero-sum logic. So we have some great thought leaders going to be sharing with us, and I hope you can join us in one of those times. And I guess I will turn it over. And I mentioned just before, Roger, so we're planning to capture these ideas and issue a report following the conference that we can then use as a building block for attracting other people with ideas. And of course, we welcome all your input as well after the conference. Roger, you want to share a little bit more about the framework and your thoughts?
Sure. So I think Alan spoke a lot about the conference, but we wanted to talk also a little bit about the framework or the document that we put together here. And we wanted to make this an open discussion. So this is not just us kind of giving you our points. This is going to be a little different from our regular programs where we want to invite you, if you have ideas or thoughts that you want to talk about, you can raise your hand here if you know how to do that. Don't just interrupt. Please use the hand raising feature under the reactions button. And then Alan or I will call on you and you can share your thoughts and your ideas as well. So let me share a little bit about this document first. So let's see, share screen. Okay. So I saw a question here asking who were the authors of this. So let me just start at the top here. So these were the people who contributed to putting this together. We did have input from a number of other people, but these were the primary authors who put this document together. And I think we've laid it out in various sections here. The current economic landscape. So where are we today? What is the purpose of this document? And then I wanted to spend a bit of time just looking at these philosophical underpinnings of Headwing Economics today. But you can see also we have other sections here on the core components, the possible applications, etc. And our conference really is focused on this last section. How can we expand this area of looking into practical applications of Headwing Economics? So I'm just going to skip down here to the philosophical underpinnings section, and I go through some of the ideas that we've been able to put together that we think are important for this. So the first up, so Headwing seeks to harmonize shared values, truth-seeking, and good governance in politics and economics with the spirit and principles of faith traditions. So this was a term that Reverend Moon coined in 2002 to integrate the spiritual, ethical, and material dimensions of life. So he emphasized that humanism based on materialism is not enough. How wonderful would it be if God can be above it? So the typical view that people take around economics is a very materialistic view. So whether it is from the left-wing perspective or the right-wing perspective, it tends to be based on the idea that we are looking for stuff, for materials, material goods to be able to satisfy our needs and our wants. But we recognize that there needs to be more to this. So heart is really the essence of what drives us as people, our desire for love and for inclusion and for connection with the world. So heart, though, needs to be, working with reason, ideas, and laws, and then that develops a plan of action or for accomplishing things. So I think this is kind of the starting point for any kind of economic foundation. And then, we move into, okay, what is a person? And I think this is really important because if you look at the sense of, or the communist viewpoint, they look at a person as being a material being alone, driven by physical wants and desires, and man's value comes from the labor that they do, from the work effort that they put into creating something. So we've identified 5 essential characteristics of a person, and I have to give credit to Greenie and the Greater Reset here because I kind of adjusted it from their book. But I think a lot of these principles actually align very well with the divine principle viewpoint or the unification thought viewpoint as well. So, first up, what is a person? Somebody has divine character. So, the human person is a special creation, differing both in degree and kind from every other creature, so whether it's sentient, animate, or inanimate. So, in other words, we're not just animals, we're not apes that work. Okay, we're not apes that have tools, but we have something special about us. We have a unique value and a human dignity. So every person is worthy of being honored and esteemed. Each person is special. Third point, we are determinable instead of a determinate nature. So our destinies are not controlled by fate or by accident, but we can mold ourselves according to our creative and intellectual decisions. So basically, we're people of free will, free agency, and we have self-determination. So this kind of is connected to that. And we are responsible for our actions, and we have freedom of thought and association. So we can create new ideas and associate together with other people in a consciously structured social order, being both individuals and members of society. Okay, so that's kind of the principles that we outlined here in the beginning. I would like to ask if anybody has anything we think we missed. Do you have any ideas or thoughts? So if you want to comment on any of this, please don't wait for me to stop speaking. Put your hand up and let me know what you're thinking here. Or did we get any of it wrong? Do you think we're incorrect here? So glad to see Henri has put his hand up. Henri, do you want to unmute yourself and make some comment here?
Henry works, thank you.
Henry?
Yeah, uh, just a clarification. Are you intending to use the word headwing in public discourse? My thought would be maybe there's another term that could be assigned once this goes public. It's a little bit confusing and unusual for folks, I think.
That's a good question. We had a lot of debate about this. So,
Yes, we
Alan,
did.
do you want to
Yes.
jump in?
Well, if you have something to propose, Henry, but Godism is also a term that but that's a little bit unusual for people as well. So, there are people that use the term third way or something, but I don't know that brings in the spiritual aspect as much as headwing. So maybe we can start something new with headwing. Why not? If we can explain it well. Actually, um, Gordon's talk might help you if you have a chance to watch that, because he's been working on this area for a long time as a philosopher of religion and history, and so he's tried to adopt his thinking into this headwing framework. So maybe that'll help us too. Do you have any better idea, Henry?
Well, I've been actually talking with Alan Saunders about this over that past week or so. Once we saw your ad, he's on the call here. A lot of experience with UPF, he. Um, I worked with AFC for many years, or related, and the best thing I can come up with is something descriptive. It's really not a title, but that's God-centered free market representative democracy.
Hmm.
But that doesn't work. But that's what it is.
It's a little bit long and I don't know if it's so
Exactly.
catchy.
Like I say, it's just a descriptive term. It's not
We have a
a
term.
a
I'm sorry.
nice title.
Yeah, I'm working with another term, but that's embedded in what we're doing. It's called economic democracy, and it's
Okay,
also in Father's Reverend Moon's book and words.
that might work. Certainly better than what I put out there.
In fact, Roger
Mine,
can
mine
agree.
also describes a political system, and you're just focused on an economic. So it's all good. Thanks
Yeah,
for listening. Yeah.
Thanks, Henry. Anybody else have any comments? Otherwise,
Yeah,
I'll,
maybe I can jump in, Roger.
okay.
Sure.
I think our terminology needs a lot of refining. Headwing, I would say universalism or something much, much broader. But even the uh, heart, uh, but without defining it clearly, heart means to most people they're an organ, their heart. So, uh, if you put heart, minds, and talk about it from a social emotional viewpoint, which is accepted terminology, then you can begin to dialogue with intellectuals, because you have to use their terms. We can't use our own terms. They don't work. That's what we discovered in character education. Lacona and all the professors, when we send out Cultivating Heart and Character, they came back and it took us another 2 years to rewrite the book because our terminology is too Congolese, shall I say. So, and we all know what it means, but nobody else does. So I think that's
Yeah,
what
no,
I would
Alan,
suggest.
I would uh agree. We're struggling, we're challenged. This book was written by the Professor World Peace Academy. I guess you can't see it. Interdependence and Mutual Prosperity, Universal Values. What does it mean? There's 6 chapters in there about the economics. So remember, we're in the economic sphere trying to make sense of that. But we're just placing economy under culture just to clarify how it's being developed. But we have to find terms that relate to the economy is what we're searching for, and they haven't found it either. That's so.
I hear you. But also professors speak in linguistic ease that's so far beyond the average business person.
Hmm.
So in any case, yeah.
Point. Thank you.
It's a good point. I think, but we haven't found a better way of expressing it yet. I mean, we could talk about purpose in that position, in heart, maybe. But I think a part of what we're trying to do here is define these new terms for people as well. So if we can, um, you know, explain them to people and we can define them clearly, then they can become more of an adopted terminology for other people as well. I'd like
Well,
to
I
ask,
just want to clearly, shortly add, uh,
sorry, right?
bringing up my point. I really want to salute you guys for taking this on and attempting to do this work. And this paper looks really well thought through. I'd love to get a copy, but thanks for working on it.
I did put a link to it in the chat if you want to have a look at it and you can download it. Ray
Thank you.
McCready, you've been waiting to say something. Do you want to unmute and give your
Okay.
2 cents?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Alan, and everybody. Yeah. Um, so I agree with that point that's being made by Henry Schaffer and Alan that the terminology is a little unfamiliar. I've been trying to talk to people about the only begotten daughter, and they all look at me like, huh? And I just thought I don't actually understand the antecedents of right wing, left wing. I did take unification worldview from Dr. Ward that I'm still reeling from. No, and but it seems like right wing, left wing, which is very well entrenched. That indicates like a single axis. But we're looking at something, or it's actually just 2-dimensional, or we're looking at something that's more 3-dimensional. I felt like that's where Father was trying to go. He was trying to incorporate a bigger vision and incorporate things that it's like I like your reference to Marxism, where all we are is somewhat advanced animals that our labor is our only value, which really diminishes and the value of human beings. and then leads to where they can do whatever they want with a human being because they're just an animal, you know. So what is the antecedents of right wing, left wing? And then that's an established terminology in,
Right.
you know, in intelligentsia. Yeah. And so like, where could we go? Like I was thought of something like integrated, but I think I need to read some of the stuff you're referring to get a better integrated or harmonized or something, but something to say there's a different dimension.
That's right. Thank you. John Healy, did you want to say something? I saw you kind of waving your hand around.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Raymond just said, that he pretty much said exactly what I was going to say about left wing, right wing is obviously very popular with everyone. And the head is kind of harmonizing both together for the sake of the whole, if you will. That's it.
Good, thank you. Yeah. Great. If anybody else wants to contribute anything, please feel free to jump in.
Headwing's better than purple wing. Red and blue, purple wing, that'd be bad. So headwing, you know, it seems to fit in there, but we're still searching and trying to make it so we can articulate it.
Great.
I think Linda Colvin was trying to say something.
Linda,
Hi.
yeah.
Yes, headwing is a special word for me artistically. But I think you also could take it to mean that it gives us an opportunity to educate or expand people's ways of thinking if we can teach people what these things mean when we say headwing and we say other things. So it gives us an opportunity to describe and dig deeper into these meanings that we have, because I think they're really special words sometimes when they come from Father.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
I just have to say that when we were putting together this paper, we spent hours arguing about whether to use this terminology or not. So in the end, we decided to. I wanted to go on and read a bit more, if that's okay with everybody, and dig a
Michael
little bit
Kiley
deeper.
says integral economics. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, so if you have other suggestions, we'd have it. Okay, so the next part of this was around private property. So the third important value consideration is that every person has the right to life, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, of life, liberty, and private property. Sorry. So private property has not always been recognized as a right. And in fact, in many like communist nations, it's considered evil. So I think this is a pretty strong statement here. So whether carrying out individual or social acts of virtue, the means of empowering individuals as members of groups is private property, as in capital. So recognizing private property as a universal human right is a crucial difference between economic personalism, which prioritizes the individual at the center of the economic activity, and both capitalism and socialism. So Marxist economics in particular are incompatible with these ideas, as they are based on the belief that the human being is nothing more than a material being that labors and ownership of property should be vested in the state collective. Okay, so question to you. Do you think private property is a universal right? I'll throw that out to the group. So I got a strong nod from John Healy. So if we look at the biblical view, you know, we have the three blessings in the Bible, in the book of Genesis. It talks about, you know, taking dominion over the creation. And to me, that is like a right to private property. But is it a God-given right, or is it something that people have taken? Any thoughts here? If you want to comment, please feel free to just stick your hand up or unmute and go for it. Ray, go for it again.
Well, what zoomed into my mind is this thing, since I do have a backyard, I'm very happy to retreat to. And there's some verse in the Bible that paints a certain picture of life in a kind of an idyllic or a kingdom of heaven sense, where each man will sit under his vine and fig tree. So it alludes to the fact that that person owns that thing, and that gives a certain sense of security. So that is actually biblical, I believe, in the Old Testament. But I'm not a Bible scholar, so I just remember quotes of it.
It's a good point. Anybody else? Linda, are you waving your hand? You want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes. Also to the effect that I don't think it's a Bible verse or anything, but something that we were kind of taught was whoever loves something the most, they are the true owner of that. So whoever cares for it. So for the third blessing to really be really taking care of the earth, Mother Earth and everything, um, really has to be from that God-centered point of view. And loving and sharing doesn't mean that we're not going to share. We're not going to share the fruits of our fruit tree with our neighbor. So it's not like I own this and you don't have any right to take anything from my tree kind of thing. But the whole aspect, the whole thing is our hearts, our hearts in conducting this kind of ownership, and how do we care for things?
Hmm. So my thought in kind of putting this together was that you need private property in order to really be creative, in order to be able to realize the fruits of your investment and your creativity, and whether that's in, creating a farm or some food or whatever, and growing a crop, or whether it's artwork or some technology or whatever, that right of ownership, I think, is essential for us to be human, to be people who can, make something of value.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said. That's great. Yeah, that's a good point.
Alan, what's your thought? You're looking very thoughtful
Well, again, we're in the realm of economics, and the economic landscape that people see clearly is a vast differential in wealth and in power, economic power. And so that's, and as the divine principle says, democracy was brought about to break down concentrated power, and even in the economic sphere. So how do you get to a place where you can, we're not talking about equality and outcome. Some people think that's the goal, but that's not the goal, I don't think. But how do you break down some of that concentrated power? And so that this is speaking to that. Everybody should have the right to have access to the banking system, let's say, to the credit system, so they can work, be involved in the economy and build and develop. So that's kind of what we're getting at with the right to property, because property equals power in the economic realm. And there this book. Well, again, I'm referring to this book, the Capitalist Manifesto by Kelso, which we're going to touch on a little bit in one of our speakers. He said that you can't have political democracy unless you have economic democracy. Political democracy can't survive in all conditions. So how do you get to a system of more economic democracy? What does it look like? And that's kind of where we're struggling. There was a chapter in this book by one of our unification people on economic democracy in Korea. So that's kind of the realm of things we're looking at in terms of distributing. And one last thing, and then I'll shut up here. But in the political world, our founders knew that to get away from tyranny, concentrated political power, they had to spread out, distribute political power through our federal system, and the one man, one vote, and then the federal system. So what's the equivalent of that in the economic realm to distribute, the economic power? so that it's not concentrated and then creates a world of struggle and unfairness and unjust systems. So thank you.
I think that the founders of America also struggled with whether to give everybody the vote or only the people who own the property the vote, right?
That's where it started. Yeah, I think that's right.
Alan, you want to join in?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your comments. Yeah, I keep on hearing the term Marxist and communist from my experience of working in Russia and China over 30 years. They're not communist countries. They're authoritarian, somewhat socialist, capitalist nations, especially China today. The government is more authoritarian. But when you talk about communism to professors in those countries, which June and I have done for decades, they laugh at you. They all know it doesn't work. So we don't really have any pure communist or Marxist state anywhere in the world. They're authoritarian. So we may want to change our political perspective. And I know you're looking mainly from an economic view, but they're much more democratic, socialist, even the Chinese are quasi-capitalists. They didn't, when Hong Kong, when they took over Hong Kong, they just didn't dominate the whole island. They actually learned from what was working well and created another version across the way from there that competed with it. So
Shenzhen. Yeah,
Shenzhen. So so I think we need to be clearer with our political theories, because some of this is really, in my mind, kind of outdated.
well, I think that you bring up a good point that the economic application of the labor theory of value has not worked out very well for those who've tried to implement it. But I would say that, people like Lenin and Mao Zedong, they tried to implement those systems, right? And there is a lingering effect of that in the world.
There's a lingering effect, but even talking with professors here, they push socialism. They don't push Marxism at all. And they're all capitalists. They're all very wealthy. So, they're not Marxists.
It's a good point.
Anyway,
So maybe we're arguing with the wrong group. Maybe we should be seeing what are the areas within the socialist sphere that are more applicable to the that's kind of more on the left wing side of things, and then the right wing side is the more the business, laissez-faire, capitalist kind of a side. And how do you combine those together?
Yeah. And how we can create something better that has unification theology. It's brilliant, but we have to take it down from that level.
Yeah. I'd like to invite David to join the discussion here.
Oh, hi, everybody. I may not be in the best environment. I hope you can hear me.
Sounds good.
But Alan hit on a very, I think, important point, as did one of the previous commentators, about defining left and right in the context of authoritarianism. There are certain commentators, authors like Thomas Sowell, Dinesh D'Souza, Bill Flax, Jonah Goldberg, Max Nyman, who take the view that, for instance, fascism is to the right of communism, but only by a few feet, not a few miles. That any authoritarian viewpoint is essentially to the left. And the farther you go to the right is where you have less and less authoritarian. So the far right are anarchists, where there's no law. Now, you don't have to accept that, but that's becoming a more common viewpoint. And to Alan's point, yeah, I think socialist, well, it was the issue of authoritarianism. To what degree are those authoritarians controlling the economy or anything? Or, so I think the terminology, and also in Chun Xiang, the chapter, book 10 on Headwing, there are many references to the idea of parentalism. We talk about heart, okay? But there are many references to the concept of parental heart and how parental heart needs to be applied to economics, to politics, to education, to the arts, sciences, journalism. So that term, now I don't know how professors would react to that, to Alan's point again, but that's a word that comes out frequently in that book, book 10, which is about Headwing and Godism. So just my observation.
Thank you. Good point. Alan, do you have anything you wanted to say more, or are you?
Good right now.
That's good. Okay.
Alan. Alan, we have two Allens here.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. All right. So I have a couple more points that I wanted to make, and then we can carry on. Okay. So the next one was cooperation, not conflict. So unification thought maintains that it is the cooperative symbiotic process that occurs in the give and take between complementary parties that creates the growth and transformation needed for higher forms of a society or economy to develop. So this is the fourth important consideration. There is a need for healthy competition to provide incentives for change and new ideas to develop. But competition is secondary to the growth that happens within a company or between companies or individuals when cooperation and mutually beneficial agreements are realized. So I think this point was made in opposition to the idea that the dialectic says that growth only happens through conflict and through, one party overcoming the other and then leading to, the idea that violent revolution is necessary. So within the dialectical world, of course, they talk about how this takes place, but also within the capitalist world, there's this idea that you only get ahead by, beating those around you and defeating your competition in order to, crush them and be the market leader or whatever it is. So, I work in business, and I know that we are constantly building alliances and building relationships with our vendors, with the people who buy from us, our customers. So there's always this cooperative feedback loop that you need to have that helps the company to grow. And if you lose that, if you lose your relationship, then that stops. So I think this is foundational to who we are as people as well. We need to exist in relationship with those around us. So I'll go on to the next point, and then we can open it up for further commentary. Capital, money, and profit. How do we understand this? These words have, I think, many different meanings to different people and different emotional baggage associated with them. So capital in many areas has almost become a bad word. The capitalism is seen in society today as not such a good thing. In fact, I was reading an article recently that said that people's opinion of capitalism as being good for America has actually declined something like 10 percentage points over the last 10 years. And people's opinion of socialism has grown correspondingly. Profit, of course, is often seen as an evil thing as well. But our premise here is that these are things that are needed. Capital, money, and profit are essential for building the infrastructure, the land, the factories, the offices, the products that build the society that we are part of. They are, in a sense, the lubricant that allows everything to work together. But if anybody is into wealth generation or managing your money, I think you would know that capital or your net worth is much more important than how much you make each day. It's more than the salary that you're bringing in. Of course, both things are important, but over time, having capital, having a home, having money in the bank gives you much more security, I think, than the average paycheck that you're coming in, because capital builds upon itself. And I think Alan was really trying to emphasize this important point is that we need to have ownership in order to be able to have equity in society. So any comments or thoughts on this? Alan? Do you want to drop in?
Okay. So part of this part discusses how this, these are part of the system. So the system, can it be improved? Okay, should it be improved? The money system, the way that people have access to the system. If we're going to have a more just economy, and the middle class is going to be able to rise and not just be wage slaves their whole life, then maybe the system has to be changed. The banking system, a lot of people complain about it, both from the left and the right. There seems to be a kind of a cabal sometimes of the banking institutions. So this is an important part of trying to build for the future, that you have an economy that supports the family. What if we could have an economy where only, you didn't have to have two people working or holding down 2 or 3 jobs? Wouldn't it be better if you have a system that distributes the wealth created more equitably? Now, then that brings up the question, if you're going to talk about redistribution of the wealth, is it going to be redistribution through the political system, through social welfare and all these things, or can you envision, if you're working together, to improve the system so it distributes the fruits of economic growth, especially in a technological society that's capital intensive? Are you able to distribute that in the system itself so that people have a better stake? So you're not just totally a wage slave. As we know, if you own capital, if you own shares of things, you have other kinds of income coming into your world. So this system, I think people feel, whether you're left or right, you can feel that it's a little bit tilted in the favor of those who already have great wealth. So can that be changed? And it's not a left wing, right wing kind of argument. We wouldn't believe it's a headwing argument to create a better system that supports families.
I'm going to invite David. David has a few things to say, I think, again, and then we'll get to Ray again. Okay.
Yeah. A few years ago, I came across a book by John Mackey, who is one of the co-founders of Whole Foods. And the name of the book was called Conscious Capitalism. And he cites exactly what you were talking about, how the term capitalism has become demonized in a very kind of unfair way, because there are benefits and problems with capitalism, but it's really become seriously demonized. And he makes a point that Adam Smith, the great economist, said that in capitalism, there's self-purpose and whole purpose, and you need to find the balance, okay? Which is a very headwing perspective, right? And I made the point last night on the UPF call that Robert Owen is cited in Divine Principle as a socialist who was advocating for a socialist modality, right? And he set up several socialist communes, both in Europe and the United States. One very prominent one in Indiana called New Harmony. Well, the New Harmony commune fell apart in 2 years because of fallen nature, right? But he lost 40,000 British pounds of investment into that enterprise, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, which begs the question, where did he get the 40,000 pounds, which is $2.1 million adjusted for inflation? Well, it turns out he inherited a very successful textile mill through his marriage, and he made a lot of money through a capitalist enterprise that would finance his socialist enterprises. So he made money through a capitalist modality, but the socialist communes that he tried to set up basically all failed, and within a few years, because of fallen nature. So it brings up the issue of like getting right with God, and Godism, which is part of the Headwing aspect.
Hmm. Yeah, good point.
Great.
And Ray, you want to unmute? Yeah.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Again, it's kind of pulling me back to the unification worldview with Dr. Ward, and he spent time talking about Western Marxism, which actually rejected some of Marxism, Leninism key points, but it was very effective in invading the West and bringing a lot of terminology that, like what's being said, that capitalism is seen as kind of evil somehow. Money is evil, profit is evil. But I always like to look at the historical antecedents, which was there's the Gilded Age, so-called Gilded Age. There were the robber barons, and that was the age of monopoly. So there was excess. So somehow in any kind of explication, you have to kind of go back and point out that these things were bad. You did have people who were wage slaves. People were working for basically not even a livable wage. They were basically being misused by the people at the top. So that has to somehow be mentioned. Otherwise, I think it's like the sleeping dragon or something that's going to bite somebody, because you have to kind of address that historical reality. And then, of course, I did see something on Theodore Roosevelt. He was a pretty fascinating guy. He actually did some of the early work to try to bring some kind of equity. And I just know a little bit from YouTube or something. But so those are, to me, important things. Because this day, you don't have robber barons, you have hedge funds. And a lot of the hedge funds have interlocking boards. And then and so like you have this huge wealth disparity in America now that is probably as great as it was back in the Gilded Age. And you've got people making so much money, amazingly. And then there's in every major city on the West Coast, probably around the country, there's people living, under bridges or whatever. So somehow this has to be incorporated into this analysis, I think. I do live in Seattle, so they spend millions and millions of dollars on affordable housing every year, and it doesn't seem to get any better. Thank you.
Yeah, housing is a big part of this whole economic discussion here around ownership as well, I think. So do we have any final comments, or shall we wrap up? Alan, do you want to?
Yeah, I do. I'm thinking a lot about the working class these days too, and the middle class, right? Because and then the system. And I read this book, written by Batya Angar Sargon. She did a real study. I can't get it there anyway. Second Class, How the Elites Have Betrayed the Americans' Men and Women Working Class. She did a long survey all across the country, and she found out, she said, one party represents the Chamber of Commerce and corporations. Another party represents the educated, credentialed elite and the dependent poor. No one represents the working class. And she found out the working class, they're not polarized. The polarization is in the elites, in the educated folks. The working class, they're not polarized. They just, they know what's going on. They want a chance to move ahead, and there's barriers to that a good economy can solve if we could work together and figure it out. So that's what Headwing should do: provide a better living for the working people, not just the And she said, this situation is untenable morally, spiritually, and economically. No society can survive. It's built on the labor of those with no voice. So hopefully that's where Headwing can move forward.
Okay.
That's my two
Alan,
bits.
Alan, you have one final comment? I think we have a few minutes.
I do. There is a form of God-centered socialism in America, which is extremely successful, which is the Amish. And interestingly enough, the Chinese came and studied it and tried to prove that this could be multiplied throughout fascist, narcissistic type regimes. But the missing point is, of course, you've got to have Godism, which they don't agree with. The other point I wanted to make is that Father Moon did something really interesting about 20 years ago, planting the seed of economic equality with all the billionaires in the world. And he started talking about they should start donating all their wealth. And look what's happened over the last 20 years. Look what Buffett's doing, what Bill Gates is doing. They're giving away all their billions. So I think there is this kind of move towards how do we create more economic equality. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And I think something you said previously, we need to incorporate into our document as well. We're talking about the purpose of the individual and the purpose of the whole, because I think that's an important part of it. So thank you, everybody.
And more on the family too, I think.
Yeah. You want to wrap up, Alan?
So yeah, join us Friday night, September 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern, I think. And I think you'll enjoy Gordon Anderson's talk because he's synthesized a lot of this, on the Headwing part. But as I mentioned when I read through the descriptions, there's a lot of good stuff that I think we can glean from, and we'll try to get a report and move forward. If you know people who we should be talking to, let us know. We'll reach out to them, economists and other economic thought leaders or business people. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Good work, guys.
Thank you so much. Great to
Thank
be
you for
here.
joining us.
Great job, Roger. Great job, Alan. Thank you
Bye,
for
all.
all your efforts.
See you Friday.